Why does Bettendorf seem like it keeps growing, whereas Moline feels stagnant? Well, today we're going to cover why that is and maybe give you some insights of where things are going. So stick around as we go through why Moline is stagnant and Bettendorf seems to keep growing at a faster pace. Now, it may not be a fair comparison, but let me tell you why I think it might be a fair comparison comparing Bettendorf to Moline. The very first one is the population. They are almost neck and neck. Moline has always been a bigger city than Bettendorf, but just recently it has come out on the census data that it is very, very close. The second reason I think it's a good comparable is they're literally right across from each other on the Mississippi, just crossing that road. They're right there. So it's a good comparison, and the public perception does seem like Bettendorf is constantly growing, whereas Moline seems like it has stagnated. So what are the reasons? Well, the very first reason I want to talk about is job opportunity and economic pressures. When we're talking about jobs in Moline versus Bettendorf, I would say there's a pretty big difference. When you're talking Bettendorf, Bettendorf seems to be attracting a lot of business to itself from large employers like Arconic, but also quote unquote small players in the new developments that are happening north of town, which is bringing in jobs and typically very well paying jobs. Where if we're looking at Moline, we have John Deere. That's a huge employer. In fact, it's the largest in the Quad Cities. But beyond that, I don't know. It seems like there's not a whole lot of other bigger names coming in and or staying there. In fact, you see a lot of companies seem to want to be leaving the area. And that's actually another reason that we see a difference in Bettendorf versus Moline, is that Bettendorf seems to be a much more business-friendly place than Moline. I've seen this on Facebook sites. I've seen this from small companies. They talk about how difficult it is in Moline to keep their business going, from taxes to governmental regulations. So you see a little bit more of a drive on the business-friendly side of things when you're talking Bettendorf versus Moline. And that is one reason that you see Moline feeling like it's stagnant, whereas Bettendorf seems to be growing at an exponential pace. Now, jobs are obviously a huge driver for a city, but what else is the development of the city? Bettendorf seems to be developing at a much faster pace than Moline, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is Bettendorf has the space. It feels like it can go on forever, goes up north. It's getting close to going past I-80, and beyond I-80, there's really no limit to what could be made out there. Whereas Moline, a little bit more landlocked. You got the Mississippi, you got the Rock River, and on either side, you have Rock Island in East Moline, and everything in there, for the most part, is developed. So there's not a lot of room to do anything with that. So when we're talking about Bettendorf versus Moline, we are a big driver when it comes to the developments that are happening. And that's not to say that Moline is doing nothing. It's just the nature of what they're doing is a lot different than what Bettendorf's doing. Bettendorf is building whole new neighborhoods, whole new business complexes, whereas Moline, they're focused more on revitalization, redoing some things, which is kind of, in a sense, because of that landlocked situation, everything's really been built out in the city and there's no room to expand, build new neighborhoods. It's more of redo, make better, all of that sort of stuff. So it's just a different nature of where each city is at. Moline's been around a lot longer than Bettendorf, and Moline is just a little bit more developed than Bettendorf. So Bettendorf has that ability to develop more, expand more than Moline does. So whether you like it or not, that's kind of the nature of the two cities when it comes to development. Is the development in Moline is more of a redevelopment, whereas Bettendorf is brand new developments getting put in from business to home ownership, all of that, new neighborhoods. So much different economic situation when it comes to development in each of those cities. Now, when it comes to actually living in each of these cities, a big question that comes up a lot is, what are the school districts like in each of those cities? Bettendorf, for better or worse, has a perception of having really, really good schools. There's two school districts there. You have Pleasant Valley and you have the Bettendorf School District. And if you're looking up on niche.com, you're seeing that Pleasant Valley is the #1 school in all of the state of Iowa, and Bettendorf School District is number 2 in the Quad Cities, right behind the Pleasant Valley School District. So that perception goes a long ways. But what about Moline? Moline is a perfectly fine school district, but that gap between perception of the Bettendorf school districts versus Moline is a big driver in where people want to settle down and put their kids through school. So that's a big reason that the difference between Moline and Bettendorf is happening, is because where people are deciding to move to, especially if they're a family with small kids. Now, if you are making the move to the Quad Cities and you're kind of deciding between Bettendorf or Moline, luckily for you, I am a licensed realtor on both sides of the Mississippi. And if you're trying to find that perfect neighborhood, you're going to want to ask a perfect questions. And if you have that question, my number is popping up down below. I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, and text messages. But if you don't want to give me a call, I have the second best option for you, and that is my relocation guide. I have made almost 200 videos on this channel, and I condensed that all into one guide, 41 pages long. Go get it. It's down in the link below in the comment section, as well as the section where we talk about this video. So go get that. But what are some other reasons that Bettendorf seems to be growing, whereas Moline is feeling stagnant? One of those reasons is because of property taxes and the cost of living, and specifically property taxes. Iowa and Illinois. We're not really talking about Moline and Bettendorf, we're really talking at a state level. Illinois is notoriously high on their property taxes, and Bettendorf in Iowa actually is still kind of high, but comparing the difference, they're still lower than Illinois. So when you're making that move to the Quad Cities, Bettendorf is seen as a possible better option, so more people are landing in the city of Bettendorf than they are in the city of Moline. I'll give you an example. When I first bought my house, I bought it for the same price that my buddy bought in Moline, and our taxes were starkly different. My taxes were almost half of what he was paying for it, and we bought the house for the exact same price. Granted, his house was a lot newer than mine, but regardless, same priced house, taxes were almost double. So when people are making a move, they're looking at that because that's going to be something that is continuous for the life of their home, and maybe they don't want to work and pay for those taxes, so they might be making that choice to hop over the river into Iowa so that they get that better benefit when it comes to the property taxes. Now, when it comes to Bettendorf and Moline's real estate market, there's a huge difference, and it's really coming down to the new construction. Bettendorf is putting in whole new communities, whereas Moline, again, is landlocked and there's not a lot of room for new development. So the houses that you're going to get in Bettendorf versus Moline are going to be different. If you want an older home, doesn't mean they're bad, but older, Moline's going to be a better option. But if you want something newer, Bettendorf is going to be the better option. And when it comes to the real estate market, because more people are moving into Bettendorf, or more people are wanting to move into Bettendorf, that real estate market is appreciating a lot faster than Moline's, and is seen as a safer bet for investors, but also homeowners that want to make sure that their home is appreciating no matter what they do, which is what the Bettendorf perception is like. For better or worse, Bettendorf has really worked on its public perception, and Moline to a degree has, but it also has a different perception when it comes to the public. What's Bettendorf's? Bettendorf's is seen as a clean, new, quote-unquote safe option, and Moline doesn't mean it's not clean, doesn't mean there isn't something new, but it doesn't have that same perception. And sometimes it's lumped in with all the other cities on the Illinois side. And if you move here, that perception of Iowa versus Illinois is very real. Some people are never Iowa people, some people are never Illinois people, but either way, it is something that happens here in the Quad Cities that maybe the reputation isn't deserved on one side or the other. So perception is a big deal. Bettendorf's really been working on its perception to make sure that people really want to make that move over there. And if you're moving to the Quad Cities, you want to know exactly which neighborhood is going to be right for you and your family. I am a licensed realtor here on both sides of the river. Give me a call, send me a text. I'd love to help you and your family out when making that move to the Quad Cities. And if you just want to see more videos about what it's like to actually live in Moline, check out this video right here.